What a beautiful day alive. Happy Friday. This is Positive Ashley, certified therapist, certified full spectrum doula, and new first time mom. I'm coming to you raw and in my fullest form to offer some transparency and give a part 2 of my postpartum appointment. It was a 6-week appointment to see how everything has been. So the last video I left off with my diagnosis before I had to get off live, and it's been really hard to kind of accept what the diagnosis was, because mind you, like last week or less than 2 weeks ago, I dropped a video saying I escaped postpartum depression, right? Little did I know, walking into my postpartum checkup, that the doctors were going to tell me, Ashley, you have postpartum depression. Now I want everybody who's tuning into this video to understand and recognize that, one, postpartum depression can happen from the moment a child is delivered to 2 years after a child is born. That's wild, right? That's really wild. That the body is changing. I got toothpaste on my face. Trying to get this bump down, but the body is changing drastically over the next 2 years, and there's nothing that we can do other than bring homeostasis to our lives. So what does that mean? That means having support, being emotionally sound, being at a great mental health state where things doesn't feel overwhelming. You're not having panic attacks, you're not having suicidal thoughts. And postpartum depression doesn't always present itself in the beginning of postpartum. So I can honestly say or infer that when I made that video a few weeks ago, I was probably doing that prematurely. But I feel like in those moments that I had made that video, I felt as though I dodged some downward spirals. Like, it could have definitely gotten worse, but it didn't, because I inserted certain tools, certain self-care methods to not drop off into the deep end. So if you're interested in what I did to quote unquote escape postpartum or come down from the downward spiral that could have happened, I urge you to go to my last video. I'm going to click it in the description below so that way you can have access to it. But I really truly believe that the tools that I did do turned everything around completely. So go check out some of the things that I did, and hopefully you'll resonate with it and find it helpful. And if you had anything that you did to take you out of postpartum depression or keep you from going on the downward spiral, comment in that other video or in this one so we can build a community of support. So going back to when I got the information, let's start with when I first went to the appointment. There's a test or a survey quiz type that every woman that's pregnant, you're taking when you go to the appointment. And it's just like this 1-pager, probably 2 pages, where it's maybe 10 questions or less, and it's asking you things like, do you feel as if you have little to no interest in doing things? Sometimes, often, every day, most of the time, the answers are something like that. Another question may be, Do you feel restless, as if you're not getting as much sleep? Same answers. Sometimes, often, every day, never. So within this questionnaire, I'm just answering it honestly. I've been doing those same questions since I started going to the hospital for prenatal care. And I never scored that high, which, come to find out, speaking to my therapist this past week, the highest that someone can score on that quiz or questionnaire is 27. I scored a 17, which is half, 10 points away. But again, I was just answering authentically and seeing, just answering. I didn't think it even came up to a score point system or, what they were using that for. So when she gave me the diagnosis and told me my score, I was shocked because, hey, again, I thought I escaped postpartum. And I was just like, what does this mean? And she definitely affirmed that I may not be the heaviest tier, but I could be showing signs and symptoms which look different for different people in different parts of postpartum. And so I instantly started crying. And it wasn't a boo-hoo, it was just like, what? Me? Oh, I don't want to feel depressed. And let me just say, I feel like I have not been depressed. Even though I may have had symptoms, I personally do not feel like I've been depressed, for the simple fact that I know what depression feels like for me. I know how deep. What do they say? I forgot the saying. Like, hit rock bottom. I know what that feels like in depression. And I haven't felt that way. So as I'm asking the doctor, like, how could this be? And she's telling me, like, you don't sound like you're too far off, and the things that you have been doing to rectify and bring yourself homeostasis, it sounds like it's working, and we want to continue that and offer more support. So in-house therapy, give you a disability form so you don't have to force yourself to go back to work, and just really checking on you because it looks different for everybody. And even though you're not the worst of the worst, this is still considered postpartum depression. So I'm like, okay, wow. Like, I feel like I started processing that, even though I'm not the worst of the worst, this could still be considered postpartum depression. But what I did not enjoy during that appointment is there was no questions being asked regarding, I guess, my personal well-being, or if I felt depressed, or what did depression feel like then versus now, if you don't feel depressed now. What else? Like, I feel like that questionnaire was so vague that if somebody was having a bad day that day, they could have been diagnosed as depressed. When in realism, some people just have bad days, and it may look different. So I feel like the questionnaire was very vague, and when I spoke to my therapist about that, she did agree, like, it's just a general point system, and without asking any other surrounding questions to gauge how severe something might be, it can sound one way and look another. So I'm glad that was affirmed for me. But I did, so okay, the week before I had the diagnosis, and this past Wednesday, I spoke to my therapist, and we did the questionnaire, the same one, because she was like, you know, that was last week, you could feel different this week. And that's why it's good to, I guess, like, have different mental health support systems, because like I said, you can have a bad day one day and you can ask those same questions and they can be seen as depressed, but in a different week, different circumstances, you're not depressed at all. So she was trying to see if the depression was in correlation, like, was I on a trajectory of getting worse or getting better, and using the system. So I did it. At the office, I scored 17, but with the therapist, it was 15. And she was like, you know, that's really great. That's way lower, not super, super low, but maybe next time we talk, you're probably at a 12. You're probably at a 10. So talking to my therapist, she asked me, like, was I in denial? And I was like, I don't feel like I'm in denial. I just know that I'm not depressed. And just hearing that postpartum depression can happen anytime within 2 years, and I may not be at the worst of the worst part of postpartum depression, but showing symptoms, it makes me feel like, for one, I'm human. I can try to prevent whatever I want, but each day as a new mom, I'm learning to balance and understand what I do day by day can affect my mood. Of course, that's even without being pregnant, but dealing with a little human that can't talk and completely relies on me. And even though I do have a partner, I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I primarily have all of the support. But I recognized probably 4 days before having my therapy appointment that being a mom is hard. Oh my God, the realization, I was just like, that's crazy. It took me to have a baby to really understand, and even as a doula, to really sit in the seat of a mother, to just realize, like, this is a hard freaking job. It's a job that I can't take off from. I can't pause. I mean, I can pause. I can ask for, you know, help or have people watch my baby, but I'm not at that state yet. I'm full mama bear. I need to be around my baby. I need to wear my baby. I need to help control her nervous system. I am the sole provider of her food supply. So there's no, like, just dropping my baby off anywhere. I've done that with my mate 2 weeks for him, and I was consistently checking on my baby. And then also I went to Sam's Club with my mom, and my grandma watched my baby, and both times there were well, with my partner the duration was longer, but I still had the anxiety of, like, oh my God, I left my baby. But going back to, it's just really hard. And I don't say hard to discourage anyone or to just quote unquote sound like I'm complaining, because I'm not. It's just a realization that motherhood is a full-time role that I can't take off from, and it's a new adjustment. And on top of sleep deprivation, which I think is the biggest correlation to me being depressed or postpartum depression. And you know, I'm not going to claim that. That was a diagnosis, and I don't feel depressed, so I'm not going to claim it. I can claim it's challenging, and I'm learning how to navigate sleep and how to ask for help and how to renew the self-care back into my daily lifestyle, because that's so important. So I'm doing it. I'm outside taking a walk. I am delegating on the chessboard to give me the most support for me and Bean. It's right here. I'm checking in mental health wise. I'm using my tools that I use for my clients, and I'm showing up. I'm taking care of myself, and I'm reminding myself that it's getting better each day. And I have a follow-up with the OB in 2 months. No, I think it's next month. Yes, next month. and we're gonna do the assessment again to see how well I've managed from the diagnosis to now. And let me tell you how I got into postpartum, because I think that's a huge part of the understanding. So the day they asked me the questions, they asked it in, based on these questions, have you been feeling like this within a month to 2 weeks? So the last month up to this day to 2 weeks ago. And that is what's creating their synopsis or assessment. If it's happened in between a month to 2 weeks, then it's current enough to say we can add this towards depression. So 7 days out of getting out of birth, I had my baby at a birth center, so I didn't stay at a hospital. 7 days after giving birth, my baby had to be she had to be admitted into NICU. I went in for a pediatrician appointment and didn't leave the hospital. And that was just so, that, when I say that disrupted my entire day and my emotional system, I like instantly started crying. I felt like it was something that I did. And the reason my baby was admitted into NICU is because she had jaundice, which I didn't realize how common it is. 1 out of 10 newborns get jaundice. But when I thought I would just go into a pediatrician appointment, be there for an hour and leave, and I couldn't leave because she had to be admitted to the NICU, it threw everything off. From my eating cycle, sleeping, we went to the doctor at like 10 a.m. She was admitted by like 1 p.m. I didn't have any naps. I didn't eat anything until 8 o'clock that night. Then I had to pump after, and I pretty much didn't go to sleep till 3 a.m. And if you're a breastfeeding mother, you already know, like, that is a recipe for disaster, because my muscles are probably getting a little stuck. I'm not eating, so that's messing with the milk supply as well. And I'm not sleeping, which is conducive to building milk and being able to keep up with your baby. And then on top of that, I'm crying. And so that's one thing. So I think that's what probably spiked everything. And then anything after that, it just was adding to the snowball. So after being at the hospital for 2 days, I finally left my mom's house. I went back with my partner. Me and my partner, we're co-parenting, in the same household. And I realized maybe in between 1.5 weeks, 2 weeks. Oh, thank you kindly. I got a visit from my doula, and before letting her in the house, I was like, can we just go take a walk outside? Like, I haven't seen the sun in days, and I just feel defeated. She was like, yeah, sure. That walk felt so amazing. I did not needed that until I suggested it, and we did it, and it felt great. And I was like, I needed sunlight. I've been in the house for so long with my partner, staring at each other with the baby, trying to while she's crying. I need that. And in between those 2 weeks, it dropped. After the NICU, my milk supply was so crazy. It was inconsistent, and it felt like I was only able to feed her just enough. Or I know how much I was able to pump. I was able to pump like 9 ounces in one sitting, and it went to like 3 ounces, and that's just a complete difference. And then I had exclusively wanted to breastfeed, but with being in the NICU, they were saying that because she was on a phototherapy system, it would be better if she could be on the light system for as long as possible. So they encouraged me to pump, and I think that disrupted my emotional system, because here's what I had in my birth plan, but I have to alter my plan and have my baby stuck on plastic for this temporary time. Like, it just, I didn't like it. I didn't want to do it, but I had to do it. And then on top of that, my milk supply was dropping. So I felt insufficient. I felt like I can't provide the nutrition that my baby needs, because she's in the hospital and there's kind of nothing I can do. So it continued with sleep deprivation, not having the best cycles of eating, and just feeling broke down, tired. And I had a great what the fuck is that? Oh, y'all, I thought I saw a snake. I had a great support system, from my family to my midwives and lactation consultants. We were able to get me back on track. I was able to get some donators milk. I really didn't want to at first, because I felt insufficient. Like, my body should be able to do this, but let me do what's best for baby, and baby needs to feed, and we're not doing formula. So we did get the donor's milk. I got 2 batches of donor's milk, about 80 ounces worth, so 160 ounces in total. And I could do a whole separate video on that, because I felt like it was easy but difficult to find a donor that you trust. So at the time, my therapist, I wasn't feeling therapy. Like, we just weren't communicating well. And then my partner had gone back to work, which sucks. They really need to give people more grace after having kids, because it definitely takes a village. And this whole 4 or 6 weeks and going back to work thing, it's just not conducive to anybody but the job, and that sucks. But he ended up going back to work, so having to transition and finding balance in that, because I'm at home for 12 hours by myself. So when I look back and reflect on, I was probably diagnosed because of the leading events up until that day. It makes sense. I don't think I went into deep end at all, but it was definitely getting heavy, and I needed to pick myself up. And I was. Every time something happened, there was somebody there, midwife, lactation consultant, partner, family, friend, someone to help redirect the wheel. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm just really glad that where I am now, even though I was diagnosed with that, I don't have to take that on. I don't have to paint that picture for myself and stay in that stagnant energy of, oh, I'm depressed. I can't believe I'm depressed. Like, that victimization, because that serves no purpose here.